Okay. Okay, Grandma. Tell me what your full name is.
Elizabeth Philomena Teresa Dumanjik Kilroy.
I'm glad
I'll spell it later.
Glad I got the longer CDs.
Okay.
What's today's date?
Thursday, October 21st, 2006.
And how old are you today?
Today I am 76. Next week I'll be 77.
And where were you born?
Detroit, Michigan.
So how did you end up in Pensacola from Detroit?
Oh dear. Well, we left Detroit, moved out to the country, the lake area. Grandpa was working for Colton Bar Engineering or Modern Engineering at the time. He was offered a position in Evergreen, Alabama, the deep south, to take a position with Clark Equipment Company. They wanted him to design the interior of the executive motor home. On the strength of that contract, he came, well, in fact, we came together to Evergreen, Alabama, got him set up, and I went back to Michigan. The job ended with Clark Equipment. They moved back north, and by that time we were some of those damn Yankees. We came and stayed. They didn't tell us to go back home. So we sold our home in Michigan and moved down, lived in Evergreen in an adjacent town, Castleberry. It was country, to say the least. Wages were poor. When Grandpa quit with Clark, he no longer had Michigan wages. He had to work for a pittance that everybody was getting paid in the South. We had come to Pensacola for fishing, swimming, shopping, and whatnot, and thought Pensacola would be certainly a better market for work and for pleasure. So that brought us to Pensacola in March of 1972.
So, how old were you when you got married?
17.
And how did you meet Grandpa?
I was working in a general insurance agency office. Grandpa went into the sign business. He came into the office to buy whatever insurance was required for the sign business, and we had a few words. A few days later, he called and asked me if I would go out with him on Memorial Day, May 29th. That was our first date.
And tell me your dating story. How long did you date?
As I said, May 29th was our first date. On the 1st of June, Grandpa's step-grandparents celebrated their golden wedding anniversary, and he asked me to go with him. He proposed to me in the Model A with an umbrella in place because the roof was leaking. And I said yes, but then I told him that I was not yet 18, so that presented a problem. That's why we eloped, June 9th of 1947. So actually, from our first date, May 29th, to June 9th, when we got married, I guess it was 11 days, maybe 12.
And how long would you be married today if Grandpa were still here?
59 years.
What was the wedding like?
The couple that stood up for us drove their vehicle. We went to Napoleon, Ohio. In fact, we had to stop in Bryant, which was the county seat, get a license. And the only way I could get married, even in Ohio, was with falsified identification. My mother's name being the same as my middle name. But they don't care. As long as you've got $20 to hand them after the few words of a ceremony, they'll marry you, and it's legal, and we do have a marriage license to that effect.
And how long after that did you have your first kid?
Approximately 15 months later. We were married, as I said, June 9th, 1947. Kathy was born September 10th, 1948.
And how many kids did you have?
5.
How many grandkids did you have?
14 grandkids and 17 great-grandkids at last count.
Tell me about, from all your pregnancies, what is your favorite memory from pregnancy?
When the baby was born, of course. But Oh, the first one is an entirely new experience. They told me I had to eat for two, and oh, I lapped that up. Unfortunately, I gained about 75 pounds. And well, you know yourself, you've had one child. They're good and bad to being pregnant. I was very fortunate. I never had morning sickness. I had days I didn't feel too good, but on the whole, I had a very healthy pregnancy with all 5 kids. The disappointment was I thought Aunt Kathy, my first oldest child, was due date was September 4th. And I was packed and ready to go. She had to be born that day. And then I was a nervous wreck. When the day went, midnight passed, they kept telling me it can be 2 weeks, with the first child. So, okay, fine. Then I was content to wait. But when September 10th came along and I knew that was the day, I was very happy.
Looking back on all of your kids, too, what would be a favorite memory of something that your kids had done?
Oh, golly. There's really too many to think all at one time, and everyone is special. And I remember a neighbor girl, Linda, was a year older than Kathy, and she made the statement one day. She said, well, my mama loves you more than you love Kathy. And I asked her why she said that. She said, because my mama only has one child, you have 5. And I said, Linda, it doesn't work that way. You love each one of your children. Each one is special, and I love each one of mine. I said, I know your mom loves you dearly, but I love each one of mine. And the one that needs me today, the one that has a problem, is the one that I love the most today, and I give the most attention to. But they're all your children.
That's a good answer. So, shifting gears here a little bit, what would you consider to be the darkest period of your life?
Well, of course, losing Grandpa, but we anticipated that. It did not come. We had time to acclimate ourselves and to be with him. Talked his ears off if he could hear us, but I think when I realized that he was an alcoholic and could not do much more to help himself, and we had lost everything. And when you lose respect for a person, you lose your love. You just feel different. And when I had to tell him that I can support myself and 5 children, but I can't support you and your drinking habit. We had lost our home and another house that we were trying to sell. They came, took my car right out from in front of my office door, and then served me with the garnishment for his debts. They left me 40% of my wages, and I just felt like the world had come apart. There are a lot of other times, of course, that if I gave it some serious thought would be bad times. But when all of a sudden it seems like the world has fallen out from under you and you've got 5 kids to be responsible for, that's when you start thinking in a hurry.
And how did you overcome all of this?
Grandpa had 10 bad days. He was we didn't know if he would live through those last 10 days after he passed out from over-medicating himself, I think, and then drinking a cold beer on top of and abuse. He was, I'd say, unconscious or semi-conscious for about 10 days, and when he woke up, he looked like the wrath of God. He walked out to the kitchen and asked if I would give him a cup of coffee. And had him sit down with a cup of coffee, and I told him, this is it. 14 years, and the drinking is more important than your family. I have contacted an attorney, and I'm going through with divorce. I can support myself and the kids, and I will have help, but not with you around. You're a millstone around my neck. And he said he would want help. And of course, I didn't believe him. We had our phone disconnected for lack of payment. I went back to work and called. He thought he had been asthmatic all his life. And he said he thought he had TB. And I thought, oh goody, they'll put him in the TB stand and I'll be rid of him and, we'll start over again. Went back to work and made the phone call, and the woman asked me in the course of our conversation, does your husband have a drinking problem? And I said, yes, and I'm not lying about it anymore. So she said, would he talk to someone from AA? And I said, I don't make promises for him anymore. I will ask him. So I went home and I asked him, and he said, yeah, he would. Two guys came that night, and he was in the middle of doing all the sign work for the Boy Scout Jamboree, which was taking place at our local high school. And they talked to him for a while, and I went in the other room, and finally I like a good hostess, I offered them a cup of coffee, and they said, yeah, I should sit down with them. So I felt embarrassed, and I thought, well, they'd just pick him up and carry him out, and I'd be rid of him. It doesn't work that way. So he did promise them that when he was through with the sign work and the Scoutorama was passed, that he would go to a meeting with them. And they told us afterwards, they walked out the door, and that's another lost cause. But true to his word, and I guess at this time, maybe he had a desire that he wanted to stop drinking and he needed help. So when Jamboree was over, he asked me to call Pete, one of the gentlemen that had come to call on him. And I don't think we had a decent running car at the time, didn't have a phone in the house, so they came and picked us up and took us to our first meeting. We always said that he conned me into going to Al-Anon and I conned him into going to AA, but we both went and we both needed it. And from that day, he never had another drink.
So how long was he in AA?
43 years in June before he passed away in October.
And so how long was he sober?
Through AA, I would say we always said May 27th, 1961 was his dry date, because that's the day that he passed out and he could not drink. And then in the few days when he tried to build himself up and did start going to AA, he never found need to have another drink. So that we always, as I say, considered May 27th, 61 his dry date, and he didn't have a drink until the day he passed away. So, and he was a happy, we call him drunks, you know. When he did try several times in between to stay sober on his own, but we always say a person is dry, not sober. There's a difference. He was not a happy person. He was not content. And as they always say in AA, even though you have a long period of abstinence, when you pick up that first drink afterwards, it's just like you had never quit. The disease goes on.
So, if you could think back to the best time in your life, what's the best time you can remember?
Oh gosh, there's so many of them. And for the most part, all your happy times are around your kids. When each one graduates, when they come and give you a hug and say, I love you, Mom. What more can you want? Well, we had so many good times, Mary. We did things together. We talk about the times when we lived in Union Lake, Wall Lake. We'd go to church. Sunday afternoon was our shopping time. Kmart in Pontiac was one of the first Kmarts. And we would take 5 kids, Grandpa and me, pile into the car, go into Kmart, we'd do our shopping. We'd buy submarine sandwiches, and I'm talking early days, 1961. We'd buy 10 submarine sandwiches and a 6-pack of RC Cola and go to an adjacent park by Kmart. And we'd sit down and we'd have a sandwich and have a drink, and the guys could play and Grandpa and I could just sit there and talk, and that was family fun. And Valerie, as she got a little bit older, she always said, well, she thought we were very affluent because we could eat out, you know. But honest to gosh, Grandpa and I were married 21 years. We were in Hamburg, Michigan, on our way to the island, when that was the first time that we sat down at a table and ate out as a family. It was only hamburgers and fries, but we ate out.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Mary, I mean, there are so many good times. Each one is special in its own way.
Yeah.
And involves a family member or the entire family. But I felt I was very blessed.
What would be your best memory of Grandpa?
of course, I was very, very naive. The funny thing is, on the way, say we had a drive, I couldn't tell you how many miles from Detroit to Ohio where we got married, and he wouldn't kiss me, and I wanted him to kiss me so bad, but he would not until after we were married, husband and wife, and I think that was the kiss I'll remember forever. And it took 14 years to say before he got into AA, and he started going to church. And then Father Jones, our pastor, encountered me one night when I was picking up Grandpa. We only had one vehicle. And he said to me, well, why don't you come some evening with Bruce? He said, nothing has changed that much since we saw you last. So I started going to instructions with him, and then he was baptized on condition. Being he became Catholic, he had been baptized as an infant, probably in the Episcopal Church, and we repeated our vows right at the baptismal fount, the back of St. William's Church in Wall Lake, Michigan. And I'll have to throw this in. It was a Saturday afternoon. Val and Betty Golmer were our witnesses, and we lived on Edgewood Park Drive. So we all got out of the car and ran across the yard, we're all parking lot, wherever, and in toward the house. And our neighbor, Mrs. York, who was a real unusual person, stepped out, nosy as all get out, and said, oh my goodness, she said, you're all dressed up, you all look so nice, where have you been? So I don't remember if it was one or all. They said, oh, we just went to see Mom and Dad get married. And we never bothered to explain to her. We just kept her guessing.
What would you say is the nicest thing that someone has done for you?
Takes a lot of thought, Mary. We'll pass that temporarily.
Okay. What jobs have you held?
When I met Grandpa, as I said, I was working as secretary and adjuster in a general insurance agency. I worked as a day cook and dishwasher in a restaurant when that was the only job that was available. And gentleman that knew Grandpa from the time he worked at Mills Products offered me a job. It was on the assembly line in the factory. He said he was sorry that was the only job that he had available. So I worked in the factory, in the shop, on the assembly line for several months. And it was a one-woman office. And Billy Fisher, who was the secretary, did payroll, everything. Wanted to take some time off. So they looked through our applications and asked if I would come and work in the office so Billy could have some time off. So I told him I hadn't done that kind of work in a while. Make a long story short, I did take the job. I did work in the office, and at the end of the second week they asked me if I would stay full-time. I worked myself up. I got to be, I went from accounts payable to office manager, and when I left the company I was executive secretary. I worked for Small Business Administration after Hurricane Frederick as on the disaster cadre as document examiner and collateral cashier. Just reading records, talking to clients, and dispersing funds. I worked in a general construction firm as their secretary and bookkeeper. I worked as here in Pensacola through a temporary agency. Sean Ellen worked for them and asked if I would help out. In fact, that's Grandpa and I worked together. We worked on mailing lists for some of the local car dealers. So I've done a little bit of everything. I say if you need a buck, you're going to do anything to earn it.
Yeah.
I'm too nervous to steal.
So let's go back to your childhood. I want you to tell me the story about when you would taunt the police. We lived in Union Lake. We went into Pontiac to do some shopping.
good Lord, I'd forgotten the store. We pulled up in front, got out of the car, started into the store, and this boy, and I'm going to estimate his age anywhere from 8 to 11 or 12. Please ma'am, help me, he said. He was crying, and he was terrified. There were 3, I would say, teenagers trying to put the boy in the back seat of their vehicle that was parked next to us. And he said, and I said, who are you? And, who's this boy? Never mind your own business. We're going to take care of him. And he was hanging onto the door, trying his darndest not to get put into the car. So I said to Grandpa, go on in and call the police. And so I stood there and I hung on to the boy and I said, who are you and what right do you have? You're going to hurt this kid. And he said, it's none of your business. And called me a few names. I don't even recall. It wasn't that important. And by that time, the police did arrive. Grandpa impressed them with the fact that there was something bad going on. They took the boys into custody, took all of their information. They said, well, they would have to take them in, notify their parents because of their age, and find out who this young kid was and what they had against him and why they were trying to hurt him. So the kids all called me a hero. But I mean, shoot, I'd have been grateful if had one of my children been the one involved and somebody would have helped them.
Yeah.
So, but it all passed over. We never made the newspaper.
You never found out what happened?
No.
When you look ahead to the days ahead of you, where do you see yourself, and what do you see yourself doing?
Pretty much just enjoying family. I'm grateful that I have my own home. I'm able to live on my Social Security, and I know if it ever comes to the fact or to the point where I need some help, I know the kids, whoever would be able, would help me out. But I'm grateful. I have my home. I have a car. I have health problems, but for the most part, I jokingly say I'm in pretty good shape for the shape I'm in. I have wonderful family and many friends, good neighbors. I feel very secure living here, and as long as things continue in this fashion, I enjoy being by myself. I can take care of myself, and until I reach the point where I can no longer do that, I'm happy to have the privacy and the flexibility and be able to have family members come in, stay, the night, or prepare a meal, or just enjoy our time together.
What's your favorite food?
Oh boy, I love to eat.
Don't we all?
Oh, gee, it's hard to say for a favorite. A good roast or chicken, and I love desserts. I didn't bake cookies last year, but I enjoy a good piece of pie, a good slice of cake, dish of ice cream, and I'm a coffee drinker, so a lot of good things in life, Mary.
What's your favorite color?
Blue. I don't think that takes too much thought.
What is, of all the places you've visited, what's your favorite place on Earth?
Well, I joined Grandpa August 31st, 1984 on the upper slope. In fact, Jim left the work site a day early, met me in Anchorage so that I could, so he could get me to my plane. There was mess up in the flight leaving Pensacola. That put everything behind. Make a long story short, I was with Grandpa on the slope from that evening until the following evening. We flew out of there to Fairbanks, spent the night, went on to Anchorage. We spent 3 days there, on to Seattle, Washington. Seattle is a beautiful place. We would like to have stayed longer, but that would have thrown our entire trip off. We went to San Francisco for a few days, and then Grandpa, I officially turned 55, a senior citizen. He took me to Hawaii for a week. And I have to say that's probably we enjoyed everything in that 23-day trip, but that week in Hawaii was beautiful.
Just looking at the clip right now. Shift gears a little bit again. Tell me how you feel about the Walmart parking lot.
Oh, I've expressed my opinion before. It's a disaster. It's been a while. The manager, Gary Barnes, always knows my disposition when I walk into the store. So I walked right up to his stand and I said, you know, your parking lot is an absolute disaster. And he said, well, we rent it from the property from the city. I said, I'm not talking about the property in itself. I'm talking about the layout. The Pepsi truck almost sideswiped 2 cars, and everybody was at a loss to know what to do. And I said, it's a panic, not a picnic. I said, can't you plan things a little bit different? And he said, well, we do the best we can. And I said, then you better try a little harder. I said, you know, if this situation existed every time I came in this store, I'd pull my prescriptions out of here and I'd go elsewhere and you'd never see me again. And if I'm happy and satisfied, or if I have a compliment, I would tell them so. I mean, you know, people gripe, and I'm one of those. But the parking lot is a disaster, and until they revamp it, it won't be any different.
So let's tell me what, if you could change one thing about yourself, what would you change, if you could?
Dear. One thing is hard to pinpoint. I'd like to be a little more understanding, a little more broad-minded. Sometimes I'm far too quick to judge, and I am very opinionated, I know that. If I'd just like to be a better person and kind of person that I expect others to be.
I would say a lot of people would probably argue that point, that they are trying to be more like you. So
That's a real compliment, I think.
it is. And later on down the years, when you're long gone, what is it that you want us to remember about you?
The fact that you're all so important to me. I love you all. And if I've done anything good or taught you the things that I felt I should, that you'll always remember me in good times. And when you do something that I wouldn't agree with, you think about me too. But, you know, I look at Grandpa's picture, and if I'm upset or if, well, just confused about something, and Mary, I no longer fear death. You know, I feel so different. And I look at Grandpa's picture and I tell him, okay, you can go fishing with Grandma May, you can go to your AA meetings, but you better be ready and waiting for me when I get there. So to get there, I have to make myself the kind of person that deserves a reward. There is a life hereafter.
And you are that kind of person, and you will be with Grandpa, and we would want you to know that we love you and that you mean more to us than anything.
I have that feeling, that security, believe me.
We love you, Grandma.
Thank you.
That was great.
Thank you.